Oh, yeah. So, if you've ever spent any time studying philosophy, doing philosophy in the kind of academic sense, you'll understand that it is quite grating. To be honest, like most academia is anyway, once you start doing it kind of cyclically. Just because you're overexposed to it and something that you once found fun stops being as entertaining. Sometimes you will just hit a brick wall with philosophy because there are so many issues and so many moral questions that you get, and you're just thinking at the end of it, why? Like, genuinely, who cares? You know, does it really matter what formulations there are in regards to if we really see colours the same? Or if animals have souls, or if humans have souls, or if gingers have souls? You know, it gets to a point where you really start to think, this is massively frustrating, and it's almost a waste of time. Like, if you compare it, say, to something like engineering, or like the veterinary sciences, or literally any practical use degree or like pursuit, they're actually practically useful, right? Philosophy is one of those ones where, sure, it's interesting, and a lot of people have views on philosophy. Like, say, for example, you can sit down in a pub and discuss the trolley problem, probably for hours. If you want to, it would be very boring, but you could. And you get loads of different answers on it, or like literally any philosophical question you can sit down and talk about for ages. But when you're doing it as a discipline, it really starts to feel like mundane after a while. You know, because the ultimate kind of questions you're asking in philosophy, they are unanswerable, you know? Been studying philosophy for the best part of probably 14 years. No, that's a lie. Closer to 13 years. Alright, nearly 14 years at this point. And here's the thing. You don't get any closer to answering any of the questions. And listen, like, there's a reason we study philosophy, not on mathematics, because sometimes there is just things that are too easy. Like, if you're trying to, you know, repair a motorbike, for example, and you know exactly what type of bolt goes in which type of fitting to, you know, fit a new fairing on, or something like that, or, you know, the exact torque specs to, you know, put the wheel back on, then it's almost too easy. Like, it's not, but it kind of is, right? To an extent, with philosophy, what you've got is these endless lists of unanswerable questions that you think you know the answer to, because right at that very moment in time, you're feeling a certain way, or the world seems to be showing you answers in a certain way. And then 5 minutes later, you feel completely differently. You feel like, no, you couldn't have been more wrong 5 minutes ago. And here's the frustrating thing. In philosophy, there are very few constants. The only real constants are other people's arguments. But ultimately, and here's the thing, this might sound egotistical, who actually cares what they think? Or the way they feel? Because they aren't you. And sure, while you can take things and learn important things from other people, because that is what we do as a social species, you've got to think that, like, how applicable is this to us, not only now, but also to you in your life, right? If you've got someone talking to you about, like, the world of the forms, for example, and sure, it's interesting, it's cool, but when you really break it down, how useful is it, you know? Like, if you're trying not to bash your skull in with a rock, that's not gonna, like, you know, make you think, oh no, this is all worthwhile, you know? So, there's so much stuff like that in philosophy that really makes you, like, frustrated, because it's almost just like a farcical waste of time, if that makes sense. Like, it feels like we are just in a human centipede, where we're all just eating nonsense, and feeding each other nonsense through each other's rectums, Like, it is just a massive circle of feces, yeah? Like, while it is academic feces, it's still feces, right? You can put makeup on a pig, it's still a pig, you know? You can make all these philosophical arguments to suggest why people are horrendous. It doesn't change the fact they are horrendous, and you can make infinite arguments on why humans are actually not that bad. And does that make them okay? Maybe. It's depending on your perspective and how you're feeling at that exact moment. It's incredible. Obviously, humans change, and some people change more than others, and more repeatedly than others, and all this kind of stuff. But philosophy just seems so rigid to an extent, you know? Like, you'll be sitting there, and you'll be learning about the works of, like, let's say, Jean-Paul Sartre, yeah? Or you're learning about Camus, or someone like that. And you'll look through their work, and you'll see, like, they've changed so many times. Why do we only learn about, like, specific parts of their life? You know, as students of philosophy, and sure, you don't have to, obviously you can learn about the whole thing, but it seems like such a trivial waste of time to be following someone else's entire life and looking over someone else's entire life and their growth and their changes when you're not doing it yourself to yourself, you know? Like, it feels like sometimes philosophy, we are just studying purely for the sake of it. Like, you know, people always say on these motivational flipping podcasts and stuff that, oh, you gotta learn something new every day and all this stuff, and like, never stop learning. And yeah, you're right, but surely it is a cosmic waste of time just to keep learning about philosophy, because there are geniuses out there that haven't studied one single lesson, haven't attended a single lecture ever, haven't sat through a seminar, haven't even thought about philosophy in the way that a lot of people that read these journals and these novels and these papers, but from philosophers and, you know, all this kind of stuff. And they can think infinitely, you know, more deeply and articulate themselves in ways that many philosophers cannot. Because here's the thing, philosophy certainly seems like it's just like someone puts forward an argument and then someone else just pisses on their cornflakes. And that's just philosophy since the dawn of time. It's just someone comes up with something, someone else disagrees, and then they have a back and forth sometimes, or that person's already dead, so their fans jump in and defend them, and all this kind of stuff. And it feels like just arguing for the sake of it. And genuinely, it's tedious. And sure, there's a time and a place for it, and that there genuinely is, because schools of thought are important, but when you dedicate so much of your life to something, and you really start thinking about what you're actually doing, and is it actually useful, is it benefiting you or anyone else around you, and it's just not really, that's when it starts getting frustrating, you know? And philosophy definitely seems like that. It just seems like a massive waste of time, right now. And hey, we said in the middle of this video that sometimes you do things and you feel differently 5 minutes later, and maybe this is one of those ones, but this discipline is tedious, to be honest. You know, if any of you guys do study anything in particular that's not necessarily the most practical thing, like you're not studying sound design or engineering or medicine or anything like that, please leave a comment and like just share your perspective on your subject, and if it's philosophy, also your perspectives on that, because it certainly feels like academia to an extent is just a circle hit of just nonsense after a certain amount of time, especially for philosophy, because obviously there's not going to be any massive breakthroughs or anything like that unless they prove the existence of God, but that's probably going to be by the scientists or other people who are actually useful to society. So yeah, this is why so many of us are unemployed. It's very difficult to get a job after doing a philosophy degree, which is awesome. Yeah, cool. Alright, well, enough negativity. Have a productive rest of your day, and if you're watching this before you go to bed, then sleep well. Alright, what's that? Jeez. Thanks for listening.